Entering the 20th century, the ancient Jewish people seemed to regain their vitality, moving toward prosperity together with the modern world. By the eve of World War II in 1939, the global Jewish population had exceeded 16 million, spread across Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas, and Australia. Europe was home to the largest communities, with about 9 million Jews, roughly 3 million in the Soviet Union and another 3 million in Poland. Across the ocean, the United States had nearly 5 million Jews. Yet no one could foresee that one of the most brutal and darkest catastrophes in human history was quietly approaching this long-suffering nation. The rise of Nazi anti-Semitism. The tragedy began in Germany, in the heart of Central Europe. As early as the late 19th century, German society was filled with anti-Semitic rumors and prejudice. Numerous anti-Jewish publications and organizations emerged. These ideas blended ancient religious bias, social tensions, and psychological barriers with modern racism disguised as science. Germany's defeat in World War I and the severe post-war economic crisis caused anti-Semitism to spread rapidly, creating fertile ground for its explosive growth. In January 1933, Adolf Hitler became Chancellor of Germany. This dictator was an extreme anti-Semite. Anti-Jewish ideology was a central pillar of his political program. He claimed that civilization originated from the white race, with Aryans as the most noble, while other peoples were inferior, and Jews were the lowest of all. He argued that the presence of Jews would destroy the racial purity of Germans and lead to the moral and spiritual decline of the nation. In main camps, Hitler described Jews as parasites on other nations and compared them to harmful bacilli, asserting that wherever Jews appeared, the host nation would eventually perish. From this, he reached a horrifying conclusion: Jews must disappear from the world. Hitler also forcibly linked Jews to Marxism, calling it Jewish Bolshevism, and claimed that eliminating Marxism required the elimination of Jews. The Nuremberg Laws and Kristallnacht. In September 1935, the Nazi regime issued the notorious Nuremberg Laws, stripping Jews of German citizenship, prohibiting marriage or relations between Jews and Germans, and even forbidding Jews from employing German maids. Later amendments expanded these definitions. A person with even one Jewish grandparent was classified as Jewish. Jewish passports were stamped with a large red J, and Jewish names were legally required to be marked as such. Jews were systematically pushed out of German society. From 1933 to 1939, about 400,000 Jews fled Germany and Austria, but many others were imprisoned in the concentration camps of Buchenwald, Dachau, and Sachsenhausen. On November 9 to 10, 1938, the Nazis launched a massive coordinated attack on Jews throughout Germany. Synagogues were burned, shops were smashed, and homes looted. Streets were littered with shattered glass glowing in the firelight, hence the name Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. Kristallnacht marked the beginning of the fully violent phase of Nazi anti-Semitism. More Jews attempted to flee, but the United States, Britain, France, the Netherlands, and others restricted immigration, leaving many refugees stranded or even forced to return to Germany. World War II and the fate of the Jews. On September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland, igniting World War II. As Germany swiftly conquered Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, France, Yugoslavia, and Greece, millions of Jews fell under Nazi control. The Nazis plundered Jewish property, destroyed synagogues, forced Jews into ghettos or concentration camps, and subjected them to harsh labor. Many were shot. More died from starvation, disease, and exhaustion. Between 1939 and 1941, over 30,000 Jews had been killed. Yet this was far from Hitler's goal of completely eliminating all Jews in Europe. With most countries refusing to accept Jewish refugees, the plan of expelling the Jews became untenable. The Nazi leadership then turned to an even more extreme path: the final solution in the death camps under Hermann Göring's directives. The Nazis devised the so-called final solution, a plan to systematically exterminate all Jews in Europe. In January 1942, senior Nazi officials met at the Wannsee Conference near Berlin to formalize the plan. In Soviet territories, Einsatzgruppen and SS units carried out mass shootings. In other parts of Europe, Jews were deported to death camps in occupied Poland, where they were murdered in gas chambers. The Nazis established 6 major extermination camps in Poland, the most infamous being Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Belzec. Auschwitz, the darkest place in human history. Auschwitz was the largest of all Nazi death camps, equipped with 5 large gas chambers and crematoria. Its design capacity allowed the killing of 60,000 people per day and the cremation of 8,000 corpses daily. From 1942 to 1945, at least 2.5 million people were killed there, including about 1.5 million Jews. Those not immediately sent to the gas chambers were forced into labor camps, where many perished from hunger, disease, and abuse. Victims also included Soviet prisoners of war, anti-Nazi dissidents, Roma people, and others. Though smaller, the other extermination camps were equally hellish. 6 million lives lost, a national trauma. Post-war statistics show that about 6 million Jews were murdered during World War II, including 1 million children. For example, Poland had 3.3 million Jews before the war. Only about 74,000 survived. Czechoslovakia's 356,000 Jews dwindled to 14,000. Of the Netherlands' 156,000 Jews, fewer than 20,000 survived. Central and Eastern Europe, once the heartland of Jewish life, became almost devoid of Jews after the war. For a small nation, the loss of 6 million lives was a catastrophe beyond description. The Holocaust left wounds that may never fully heal, marking one of the most horrific events in all of human history. Jewish national consciousness and the rise of Zionism. While the Nazis destroyed millions of Jewish lives, they also, paradoxically, strengthened Jewish national consciousness. Before the war, only a minority of Jews actively supported Zionism. But after the Holocaust, the vast majority reached a common conclusion: without a state of their own, Jews could never be truly safe. Thus, support for creating a Jewish homeland in Palestine surged dramatically. Global sympathy and shifts in international politics. The Holocaust shocked the world. Public sympathy for the Jewish people deepened, and many felt guilt for their government's failure to rescue Jewish refugees during the war. These emotions significantly boosted international support for Zionism and influenced post-war policies on Palestine, laying critical groundwork for the establishment of Israel in 1948. Britain's strategic motivations. Britain issued this declaration for both long-term strategic reasons and urgent wartime needs. 1. Long-term strategy. With the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, Britain sought to place strategically crucial Palestine under its influence. Supporting a Jewish national home provided a convenient justification for long-term British presence in the region. Since Zionist goals aligned with elements of Britain's Middle Eastern interests, Britain welcomed the cooperation. 2. Immediate political and military needs. By 1917, the war had exhausted both sides, and domestic crises were escalating. Britain hoped to rally Jewish opinion in Russia to prevent Russia from withdrawing from the Allied camp. It also sought to influence Jewish communities in the United States and strengthen American support for Britain. Germany was also attempting to court Jewish opinion. If Britain did not act first, Jewish support might shift toward Germany. In addition, key British leaders such as Balfour, Lloyd George, and Samuel were personally sympathetic to Zionism. Combined with Weizmann's persistent efforts, these factors led to the issuance of the declaration. 6. Historical significance and consequences. The Balfour Declaration marked the first time since the 1897 Basel Congress that a major world power formally supported the Zionist movement, greatly encouraging Jews around the world. As Israeli Foreign Minister Abba Eban later noted, the real turning point for the Jewish national cause came in 1917, not 1948. However, the declaration also had far-reaching negative consequences. At the time, Palestine had about 700,000 Arab inhabitants owning around 97% of the land. Britain did not consult the Arab population when drafting the declaration, nor did it seriously consider their interests. Its vague reference to non-Jewish communities ignored Palestinian Arabs as a distinct national group, planting the seeds of long-term conflict. Thus, the Balfour Declaration was both a major triumph for the Zionist movement and a historic moment in which the rights of Palestinian Arabs were overlooked.